No, the start of the turn for us, the template was going into the Ranger game. We'd come off 7-11 and didn't mind. I mean, coming out of that, the Van game we lost in overtime was a hard-fought game. They're a real good team. Really played well against Vegas and didn't like our Minnesota game. The Minnesota game had pieces of the Buffalo game too that was really good for us. I think we've used that loss to great effect. But the mentality of how we were having to play against the Rangers without Barkov in our lineup, um, and Nosek, like those guys that were out had a big impact on your team. So we got our minds right, the style of game right, and then we, returned some really strong players to our lineup. So we've been able to continue. The game that I was most worried about recently is the Philly game. I thought usually when you have one of those trips, it's not the first game back, it's the second. And I thought Philly played a hell of a game. We worked incredibly hard. So now we want to build out of it. We've got really, I think 9 of our next 10 games are against teams that are in the playoffs. The one that isn't in Chicago, I don't think we've won there in 2 years. So we've got our plate full now. And we narrow our focus down to New Jersey. Lots of speed, lots of skill. And we're going to need to beat New Jersey tonight will be the template of how we will play against the rest of these teams the rest of this month. You're going to have to be right defensively. You can't trade. It's not how we play. It's not what we're good at. So our minds have to be right. And sometimes in November, you're still in that point mode. I'd like to think we've come out of that a little bit with maturity. We've got a little bit more of a veteran team. So we'll expect that tonight.
Coach, without giving up too many of the ingredients, what's been the secret sauce to the success here?
I think there isn't one. I think we have a consistent mindset of how we're playing. We've been consistent throughout our lines and throughout our deep pairings. We're working hard. I mean, at the end of the day, we work pretty hard, and when we play that way, when the offensive number isn't as important to the defensive number, in order to do that, you got to work real hard. To be a good defensive team takes a lot of hard work, and we've been pretty consistent with that.
You haven't really seen this on the schedule over the past couple of years.
Yeah.
You're playing back-to-back games against a New Jersey Devils team, which gave you some pretty hard and physical games last couple
Yeah.
of years.
Yeah, two teams with skilled players, but it gets to physical very quickly. I like the back-to-back in the NHL. I love the home back-to-back where you get, but I like the double back-to-back on the road. Anytime you get to play a team twice, it's a little tiny mini playoff series, right? You get to play the game, and then you both get to work on the same video, and you get to come back and see how your team handles the adjustments that you need to make. So these are good.
And like Aaron Eckblad said, anytime you get to save a flight, now this doesn't apply to you guys,
Yeah.
but you save some flights, good on the wear and tear.
Yeah, we really, our experience during the COVID season, we were in the Canadian division. We didn't have a team in our time zone. So we were going back and forth across Canada. As difficult as it was, and it was more difficult because it was very strange up there. There was nobody in the hotels. There just weren't people. Nobody in the buildings. Not having to fly as much really helped. Being in the same city 3, 4, 5 days in a row helped us greatly.
Yeah, you played Calgary, I think, 4 times.
Yeah, we got to know each other pretty good. We spent 7, like as you're complaining, right? I think we spent 7 days at the Ritz in Toronto. Like I'm complaining to my brother, and he's going, "Really? You're at the Ritz? It sounds horrible." But I think there's a value to being able to play too. I still like the home and home better. I think that's great for the intensity for the markets. It winds. I think it's a more competitive way to play. Sometimes it does get Groundhog Day-ish, kind of onto the next team. When you know you see them again, you're usually right.
How much did you hate playing against Matthew Tkachuk when you had to play the Flames 4 games in a row?
What an opposite end of the spectrum feeling, right? Yes, is the answer. Like, you piss your whole bench off for 57 minutes and then score the game-winning goal. Like, it just always, you just get lathered. And then you meet the young man, and he's such a wonderful person to be around. His on-ice and his off-ice personality. He's also a different player, considerably different player than he was even 2 years ago. Just look at his penalty minutes. Right, he had 7,000 in the first 3 months that he was here, and then it just disappeared until his brother comes to town and he gets 17. But the discipline and maturity in his game is pronounced, and it has a big impact on our team. We're not in the penalty box nearly as much as we used to be. We still play as physical as we ever have, but we're far more disciplined, and I think he's the reason for it. I mean, Barkey took a penalty there last game, and everybody was shocked by it, the goon. But Matthew is the player that would be probably viewed as the most confrontational guy, or the guy that starts most of the fires. But it's just not true. For a year and a half, he's been a very disciplined player.
And just, sorry, first time seeing you this year, you've gotten off to a great start. What were your concerns coming in? And maybe you've discussed this with the media here. I'm sure you
Yeah.
have, and I apologize.
Well,
With coming off a Stanley Cup and short off season, because there has been no quote unquote angle.
Yeah.
Simply why?
all of those things are the concern in 2 summers that were almost the same. I think possibly the shortest off season in the history of the league. We played until the 24th of June. So you're looking for certain tells. The first is anecdotal. How hard do they test on tests that most of them don't need to excel on? They're going to make the team. We know they're in good shape. The bike test before where the puck even hits the ice, they went hard at it, and then their numbers said that they were in better shape than they were the year before. So the physical part, I guess that's mental as well, because if you spend too much time celebrating, you don't spend as much time in the gym, and there was none of that. So we weren't worried about. The rest of this will be our ability to find the emotional level that an NHL game demands. That's just the challenge for us. And they've been good at it. That's the room. We talk about it quite often, but that's the maturity of the room. I think having some adversity early was good. We started 7-11, and both Matthew and Barkov were out of our lineup. Nosek was already out of our lineup. Gadjevich went out of our lineup. So we had a bit of adversity, and we're breaking in some new players, especially on the back end, Balinskins and Boquist and Schmidt. That was good for us because we had to tighten up a little bit. We weren't winning on our power play early, right? And that's a good thing for your hockey team. So you grind her 5-on-5. Then we got a little bit healthy, and now we've got as probably as strong as month as we're going to see, not in terms of the dates, the travel, or any of that kind of logistics, but we've got all the powerful teams coming in for the rest of the month. We've got Jersey, and then we follow that up with Winnipeg, and we got Carolina at the end of the month, and that's also got Toronto and Washington, Colorado coming in. And as I said, the only team that's not in the playoffs, Chicago, we haven't won there in 2 years. So we got our plate full, and we need to be right tonight to set that path forward in the correct way.
You mentioned Thomas Nosek and his importance several times over the past couple of weeks. What are your been impressions of him since he's come back?
He's a good, smart, veteran pro. So he knows his game. What I mean, he knows what he's good at, and he knows that he's not beating Verhaeghe down the ice. So he's not going to try to do that, right? He takes his skill set, strong on face-offs, positionally very good, knows when to finish a check, when to reach a little to finish a check, when not to. But his game reads are good, and he and AJ have a relationship. That chemistry is really important to his game. He has to have that chemistry with his line mates to be effective, and he knows it, so he works at it.
Same lineup.
Yes. No, Spencer plays tonight.
Spencer goes tonight.
Thank you, Coach.
Okay,
Thanks
guys.
very much.
Thank you.
Okay.